Hello, this is that BMX guy, and I've started the project of sticking a 3-speed hub on my bikes. Anyway, lately I just acquired this AW. It's a normal 3-speed AW. It's a 48. I acquired it just for one part, and it's this threaded driver. It's actually the same threading as a track cog, like this. And since this isn't the easiest task one-handed, I will try to thread on there. It's not going to be easy. Of course. Try to do stuff one-handed, you can't do it. There we go. So yeah, it would just thread on a track cog like so. So it would just tighten up and keep tightening as you put torque on it. In my case, I put a lot of torque on a hub, and with the coaster brakes, I've been having issues with the 3 little nubs eventually walking and breaking off. And that's these kind of drivers right here, where they have just 3 little nubs for the teeth of these cogs, like this one. This is another project, but yeah, we'll probably not go into that project anytime soon. But the idea is that this is going to go into my AM, the 1952 AM. So stay tuned on that after this. Okay, so we have the wheel. This is my AW with the AM inside. The driver that's going in here is this threaded driver. As you see it, this is a normal 3-prong driver. So all this stuff has to come off, so I gotta get it out there. And I recommend changing the driver this way, not just try to take the driver out while everything's in there. So you never know, something might fall in there, or who knows. I just know it's better to take it apart. Obviously, take it apart like you would normally take it apart. If you can see what I'm doing. This is the problem, I can't get it to face the right way. So lollipop, the snap ring, these spacers, which I'm just kind of putting where you can't see them. This is the cover. This is actually going to go on that guy like that. It just sits on there. I'm going to use this as the spacer. Now what this will do is make it so I can use a lock ring spanner, or a hook spanner, to hold the driver in place as I unscrew the cog without taking the whole hub apart every time. This is the goal. So this is all ready. Let's start taking this thing more apart. This was not a very prepared second section here. Fortunately, with all the maintenance and tear-downs I do with this, it's very easy to get everything off. This is still a 16, this is still a 17. This is just a washer to space it out. It should come off of here. It will fight me every step of the way. I'm not sure how it was on there in the first place, obviously. Some force will come out here. We'll unscrew this again. So this has the black grease, the stuff I normally use. And there's plenty of oil. Okay. I don't remember if I hammered this or not. Every time I look at that camera, it seems like it's too low, and it's getting on my nerves because of that. So we're going to put that even higher. We just give it a couple of taps. Should just come right off. Hammer and punch. So screw it. There we go. We got the 52 AM. I don't know if you've seen the other AM, but the 52 AM is actually the darker metal. It still has the I don't know what you call it, the pawls or multi-direction. And I don't know if you can even see inside the hub because there's no way to see inside of it. Some light, like so. And yeah, there's plenty of oil in the hub. You can kind of see a pool in there. So I didn't really got that much. I'll just put this down somewhere where this is out of the way. So yeah, so we have the AM. That's the other AM. There's two AMs I show. I showed a 49 and I showed a 52. So this is the 52 right here. It's just made with a darker metal. Like they changed their metallurgy. They used to, I guess, nickel plate them or lead plate the stuff, and they kind of need to follow EPA rules, and they realized that, I don't know, carbonizing, I guess is what they call this. Anyway, it's like a darker color. And even when you look at this driver, you see how it's like a silvery color? I don't know if you can definitely see it in the video. It's definitely a different kind of metal process. It did in the 40s versus the 50s. Anyway, yeah, it still has the two-way pawls. And, yeah, I think the grease is starting to leak into the oil. Anyway, we gotta take this apart to get that driver in here. And this is the second chapter of the video. It's a little more a different time. So hopefully you can zoom in on what I'm doing with your phone. Just use a large screen TV and you'll see everything perfectly because like it's pretty large TV. So pull everything off the driver, get the driver out of here. Let's just switch it. I'm not going to use this in particular bearing race because I got that one. I don't know if you see it or not with this one, but it has a polished race and it's also the older silver metal. I'm not really sure that attributes to better or worst, so we'll find out. So I'm going to use my right hand to hide unscrewing this on you. We will hope that you can get the idea that you're just unscrewing this like a normal cone nut. It takes a little while, like many seconds of the video. Yeah, there's a spring that's going to fight it, so it doesn't. There's also a cap for the spring. This is the other side. Just put that right there. This is the driver's coming off. Obviously, the spring cap has to come off of it. So we'll put the spring cap somewhere. Oh. I see any difference. Lay it carefully like that. Hopefully those balls don't move out. There's a little bit of difference in those drivers than I thought. More than just the black. Not sure if you can see, but see how there's like it's just a straight taper on the silver guy, if it focuses. But this black one, it has a kind of extra edge to it. It's interesting. I'm just wondering if that makes any difference in performance, or I'm looking on them side by side. I guess they look like they're the same where it matters. I don't know what do you call these flanges really matter. There's also ones that are kind of more of a step here. But this is a driver that I must have been using it with the other one, because I thought that's what I changed. But it's definitely different in other ways, not just the threads. So I'm going to take a look inside this guy a little bit more, just because I just like looking at stuff. So this is actually what I was using on the other AM, this bearing cover. So this AM, if you ever look at the other video, the other AM, there's only 4 dogs inside this driver, when the other one had 8, and they were kind of diagonal, like in the sense that they were offset one to the other. And the way the other one shifted, it seemed like it was better the way it shifted. When this one, you gotta actually stop pedaling to shift. I think that is attributed to the shifting being a little more different. With this guy, I did put a new clutch in there, or not clutch, what is it? No, it's a clutch. But I still got the nice captured spring thrust washer, because I like the one piece. I don't know why they changed that to like a little washer and the thing that holds the key. Yeah, so this one's like a little, everything's a darker metal. When I compare it to the other one, this doesn't look like it's cut out as much in these areas. I don't know, does it make a difference? Who knows? I mean, they probably made it a little bit better in the 50s. The timing marks should be fine. I don't think they changed or anything. It's just a matter of being able to see the time marks. It's very hard to see them. I know the camera ain't gonna pick on, but I think that's the time mark you can see it against my finger. But I already did this before, so it should be fine. I mean, let's make sure this spins. So we got this new driver that we gotta put on after the barring on. This driver just has straight fingers. That one has taper fingers. I wonder if that made any difference with the performance. Like, does it make it stiffer? Like, what does it do? Doesn't matter. Anyway, it just goes right on. There's no difference. It may work better this way now. Who knows? The spring's already at air. You don't have to worry about that. This is the spring cap. It's a metal one. You don't really find the metal ones anymore. Yeah, metal is just better. I don't really understand the whole plastic situation with bikes. Anyway, we're going to put the new driver in the new bearing race. There's already new bearings put in that driver as it is. I'm not afraid to get grease on my fingers. I'm not afraid of getting oil on my fingers. I know some people are thinking it causes cancer and all this other stuff. Well, it probably does. But, I've lived this long. I mean, you're going to die. It doesn't matter. Your time comes, it will come. I mean, everyone's always afraid to die. But, it's like you're holding on to possessions mainly. That's the problem. Anyway. Tighten that guy down like you would normally do. With this one, I just bring it back. It's already like a diagonal, which is not really helping me. But bring it to here and bring it one more quarter turn so it's straight. I look for a nice keyed washer that makes things easier and keeping things from moving. This is a newer 17mm nut to make it just, I just don't like the 5/8 ones. I think 17mm nuts are just more support to the dropout, so I use these. I'm trying to make it visible for the camera. Yeah, it's hard to do. Okay, tighten these guys up again. And yeah, I can tighten a lot. I do like walking. Oops. So that should be nice and free. The one thing I noticed about the 52 though, it does feel like there's a little bit of drag. Like maybe, I'm not really sure. Like the step gears themselves might just need to be more worn in, or I'm not really sure what really was happening with this, but it always felt like there was a little bit of drag compared to the other AM that's extremely wore out. Maybe the wore out is better for resistance. But yeah, so that's back together. So what did this do? It just added the fixed gear cog. I'll get this back in the hub. I'll just pause the video for a second. Okay, so the plan is to actually use this guy. So we're going to put some oil in things, like let's make sure oil is fresh and stuff. I think the main issue is synthetic oil. In this case is 5W30, and just basically gotta make sure there's oil on these, oil on that sun anyway. Try to get oil in here on these teeth. This is where all the drag is, it's just the teeth. Look at this, it's kind of greasy. And the one thing about that 49 is that it seems like it's very clean. It's like whatever they put on this shit, this carbon shit, it's actually dirty. Makes everything really dirty. Anyway, I'm going to add oil inside here. Just a teaspoon about. I don't really go crazy. Just basically try to get some light in there and then just see what I'm doing. And just pour it in there. Make a little pool. Like that. It's not that much. Like I said, this mobile one, 5W is the 30. It's just from the Subaru Outback, you know, it's just extra oil. I use it for lots of things. I'm not going to say, because a lot of people will say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't use that with your chain. Turn this guy back on. And the goal is to try to use this hub this winter. Now, I don't usually hammer that tight. Because it'll tighten itself. Okay, Okay, so the AM is kind of almost done here. Maybe dry off more shit. Oil. It's nice and quiet. This bearing race back on here. Make sure it's not dirty. I'm just wondering if there's actually performance level bearing cones for these. Sort of like how the Shimano Dory Ace bearings and XTR are like precision ground. Like the other one looks like it's kind of precision ground by Joe Bikey. I don't know. I just don't think it's something factored in. It'd be nice if like Sturmey Archer did that kind of thing for these. So I'm just gonna get this like kind of snug. Get the fighting washer back on there, because it's gonna fight probably getting back on too. It's a 10mm washer, so it's gonna be like very tight. It's actually easier just to press it on with the nut. Tighten this lock nut down. To even thread onto the axle. So we just make sure there's like just a little bit of play. Feels like there's a little bit of play is more than fine. And the skin's nice and free. You can hold the driver, it doesn't walk. You know, it almost feels like it's better than it was with the other driver. And maybe that little taper on the flange is making it drag a little bit. This one definitely feels a little bit better. I like to point out that these are grade 25 bearings all the way around, so that smooths out the hub a lot. So let's put the hardware back on it, so it's just sitting on it. So it protects the axle. Okay, so we have the cone cover, or the bearing cover. Make sure it's kind of clean. Make sure nothing underneath the dirt. It's rubbing and stuff nicely. Kind of is annoying when there's noises that you don't know what they are. So we got the cover. Let's stick this lock ring kind of for a bottom bracket. And what this will do is it'll make it so we have enough spacing. And make sure that's nice. And I guess I'll put some oil on the threads. Instead of grease. Kind of help. That guy. There we go. I don't know why it has to take so long. Okay, so I would just need a chain whip to snug that guy up. And then as I pedal it, it will snug itself up. So what's nice about it's like a freewheel, it'll just tighten itself. But it makes it so there's almost no offset to the dropout. Like this will add dropout space on the inside a little bit, and it makes it so it's a little bit less than a half, and it's perfect because that makes it so it lines up with the front sprocket a lot easier. So soon we're just going to see how this fits on the bike. I have to say it rolls pretty easy. It's a little bit slow. So put all this stuff back on and get to starting the other project part of this. This is a long-term project. This is not a quick video. I'm going to say this is taking me a month. Right now it's been maybe 3 weeks since the first section of this video to this section. So this next section coming up will probably be the same amount of distance. Unless I feel like putting it on right now. I think the problem with putting this on the bike is that it's extensive, and that is why it needs a whole video. Anyway, on to the next section. Okay, so what I've done already is prepared the bike. I have it on the wall rack here. So I put a 15 tooth cog on the totem hub, so I already had the brake kind of lined up for the 3-speed wheel. The chain right here is going to go back on it. It's the chain that I was using. I have a new chain for this cog that's kind of behind everything down on the floor. So we're going to need tools, something to cut the cable, wrenches for the chain adjuster. I'm just going to use this for the axle nuts, and this is for to take this wheel off. So the way that I kind of get it to work is I use one of these cable adapters, since it doesn't have to worry about sliding up and down the frame. I guess if I use a fulcrum clip, I can just stick it right above the brake mount, but then I'll, crush the paint right there or something. So I don't really want to do that. This is kind of the most minimal, least intrusive way to stick the cable on there. Then I'll just use zip ties to hold it where it needs to be held. I just usually zip tie right to the cable, which is on, somewhere around here. Like maybe one little zip tie here, one little zip tie there, one little zip tie there, maybe another one up above. I'm gonna try to make it work. I don't route it underneath because it's just, when this is here, it's usually where my feet would be hitting it. When it's up here, it's not, hit with the back of my foot. Now, I'm not saying it's always possible, but if the back of maybe it's just another inch, it'd be fine like that. But then I gotta route the cable underneath and use zip ties on the frame versus on the cable. It's kind of easier just to route it up. So we're actually going to use a Sturmey Archer foam shifter. It's the S30 that I bought for this hub. It's a modern shifter versus the old trigger shifter. Anyway, this is 22.2. I'll mount right on the handlebar. Maybe I'll put it right here or something like that. And we'll get that going. I think someone was saying enthusiasm in one video, but for me it's kind of difficult to say things right and be happy and joy fake. So I just like making sure I say the information right as much as possible. The gearing on the bike is still 48 on the front, so we're going to actually use a 15, which I already put on here earlier. The 15 is a thread-on track cog that's 3/32. I put the wheel diapers on this thing because it still just pisses oil out of it sitting around, and I'm not worried about getting all over the floor. So trying to keep my hand from getting in the way, since it's kind of upside down. Got that right there. So the wheel has to come off. This wheel. Really easy to release paw brake and then pull the wheel off. This wheel will come off immediately. As you see, I use a quick release chain adapter. So based on my time, the ones are like this. inside. This actually is a quick release to make it faster and less of a pain in the ass. There's internal chain tensioners make it a timely effort to get the wheel off. It doesn't make any sense. This style, the VG style as I call it, this is based on a VG style chain tensioner. Just pop it off. You can just push the wheel a little bit forward and get the chain off. That's it. Don't waste your time on other bullshit. Try to make this out of the way. Get that out of the way. It's a nice loud freeway that you hear. Won't be on there now. So we don't even need to anymore. So to get this on there, it's a timely effort. It's going to leave the wheel wipers. But this is better to take everything off. I just put it on there so I don't lose it. But if everything's off of here, it's just better. So yeah, I got these chain adapters. Or these aren't chain adapters. These are actually axle slot anti-spinners. And what the anti-spinner does is that when you try to get the phone out of the cradle, this axle adapter sits in there. Now, with this dropout, I gotta file out the paint, or something is making it too thick for this. So I'll figure out a way to get that to be a better fit in a second. But sometimes they go on the inside when you put them on the wheel or the frame. But in my case, I'm just going to put them on the outside to make it easier to take them off, because they kind of hold the wheel in the dropout sometimes. When you use those little 5/8 outside lock nuts, it's probably better to use those on the inside. But I kind of want to use this chain tensioner. And if I have these 7/8, or not 7/8, I think they're 11/16 nuts on there. They protect the inside of the dropout anyway, and they haven't given me any problems doing the outside versus the inside. Anyway, I'll sit there messing around with this frame for a little bit, because I don't want to really show filing them. I'm cringing just thinking of filing the paint off, because it's just going to rust where they're filed. Anyway, so file the bottoms and tops, just the paint, take it off. And we basically just got to get that to fit in there and slide all the way forward. We only need the wheel to go all the way forward anyway. We are going to put it like right around here. So it might not even need them to be chain tension, because the wheel is so far back. Right? It might be fine where it is without even using a chain tensioner. So we'll see. I'll just get that on there. It's probably going to be a fight getting on there with the chain tensioner on the inside anyway, so I'll just show you it after that. Okay, so we got the wheel on. It wasn't an easy task. It's usually a nice fight, especially when the chain tensioner is on the inside. Let's take the wheel diapers off it for the video. I call them wheel diapers. And they just keep the oil from spilling all over my floor, or all over the wheel in general. It does matter. It kind of matters. It's destructive in some ways. So the wheel's on there. The chain is on there too, so that makes that easier. Get that all lined up, started. You'll notice already it's quieter than the other thing. You can't even hear it. These adapters, I set them on the outside, like I said, because of the fact that I need the chain tensioner on the inside. So let's try to get them in there, finesse them in some ways. I'm going to put it back on the stand. So the wheel's on there. It's got just a chain tensioner. I kind of like to adjust it before I even put everything else on. There's the arm. This arm has to go on there after I'm done. It's just too hard to kind of get it mic'd, if that makes sense. It's easier to take you out of the stand, I guess, to see what's the deal. But yeah, the chain tensioner is on the inside. It's a Claim and Pop actual embutment on an old cheapy eyelet chain tensioner, a lollipop as I like to call them. I kind of like using a socket wrench for this, but there's really no room for it. So I waste minutes just tightening this. Maybe I'll show it tensioned. Okay, so everything's tensioned right. I just gotta adjust the brake. But other than that, chain's right where it needs to be. It's kind of, I like it having a little bit of looseness. It will loosen itself up. But right out there is kind of where it's taut enough. I'm not a kind of person that likes the chain so tight that it actually makes me slow down. Like, it actually makes the bike slower if it's tighter. Anyway, that's all adjusted. So I'm just going to adjust the brake so it's more in the middle. It didn't seem to be, I didn't dish it for the frame. I guess after I use it at least one time, it's properly dished, because this all is offset a little bit more than that side, so that kind of dishes the wheel. I think, anyway. I think when you look at this side and you look at that side, yeah, this side is just as far forward, so yeah, it should be. Let's need to dish it. But after I do that, I'll show you putting on the cables. Okay, so I just started the brake. That was what took the most effort. Anyway, so we just got the chain tensioner. This thing, chain is kind of where it needs to be. It's still when it's clicking. It's just hard to keep it spinning because I can't spin it. Just keeps wanting to spin faster. So the wheel is fairly straight. It's not as straight as it could be. Maybe I can trim it better. But you may notice that the hub itself isn't very round either. It's only from the 40s. Actually, I think that shell is from the 50s. Oh, yeah, it's a 56, but it's still not very perfectly round. So the next step is actually getting the cable to actually shift it on there. Now this is a Sturmey Archer newer style cable stop. It has an adjuster barrel and it will just go right there. I prefer to use the chain going straight into here with no stupid plastic pulley. I say stupid because plastic is just stupid on a bicycle. So we get this nut off here. And look at this guy in place. I can't do this with just one hand, so we will pause this for a second. Okay, so I got the nut on there. It doesn't look like it kind of wants to go past the tube. It sticks out a little bit further than a previous frame I did this on. So maybe I'll just sit right in the middle of them. They can't really go anywhere. I can always bend it later after it's tightened, or just bend it again. It just really needs to be just a little bit out. So it's not, I'd rather sit on top of the tube, or I don't know, right there is probably fine. You gotta work at what you got. Okay, so that's all on there. I just have that a little bit adjusted. I think it's fine where it is. If I noticeably hit it constantly, well, no, but I'm using clipless pedals. It's kind of brushing by, in a sense. It doesn't really matter. I look at it, no matter where it's at, it's kind of pretty close. I'm not even sure how it didn't rub before. So we get the chain, the toggle chain, as some guys call it, but I just call it the shifting chain. Indicator chain, HSA, who the hell knows. I have to point out that, alright, it's on there. Yeah. that's in there. We have this rubber cap that I like using just for the sake of protection. The thing about it is that make sure this is tight, right, and just loosen up. This maybe it's where I actually make sure there's little. See how the pins have no hole? I'll put the holes facing down. Method to madness is the fact that these holes are facing down. The water isn't going in them and locking them up over time. Does that make sense? So that should just sit like that. You should be able to pull it. This also keeps me from banging things onto it, like on the ground, falls or something. So we got that started. It has a little nut that goes on it. I have to thread the nut all the way down the threads. It's about there, so it can't fall off. Now we got to run the cable. Now I'm going to actually change the setup, so when I run the cable, it's not going to have the wall behind me, it's going to have the bed behind me, just because I have space, or I feel like I have space. So that's the next segment, running the cable. Okay, so we got the bike just standing up on the ground. Still be easier to work on stuff. Anyway, so we got this Sturmey Archer shifter on this Paul Fumby cable clamp. You wanna know why I like it? Because it has a folding clamp. So we're gonna put that thing on the bike. Okay, so we also got Allen wrenches versus just normal Phillips head screws. That's just a little folding Allen wrench. So generally speaking, I'm gonna figure out a good place for it. There's really nowhere to put it. Makes sense. So let's just make sure it's clamped for anything here. So we have the cable that comes out pretty much where this cable is. It's probably going to be that good. So let's try it somewhere else. Maybe here. The closest position. So we got the shifter on there. What's nice about it is that you can just take it right off or put it back on, or even move it around if you have an Allen wrench on you. And so I'm just going to have it like that. It's kind of nice positive film shifter. Actually, I'm not sure that was all the way in. So this is high gear right here. That'd be second gear or medium or direct, and then we have low. So the only real problem is it's going kind of the wrong way. I kind of think that this being low would be better because it's kind of where it's in the way the most. And here being high and low is a better place. Now there's still a little bit of slop to the shifter, just like there would be on the trigger. It could also not be tight. But this is where that trigger is going to sit. I have to run the cable down the frame to that back adjuster. And I'll cut it and zip tie it and all that stuff. Okay, well, it's getting a little tough there. So I use zip ties to kind of hold it in place. So we have the cable going into the shifter, going down, around. All the zip ties are kind of put at the cable guides are already on there to make it easier. And then there's this one. This is just to keep it from going in the tire. And then we just have to cut it. Maybe so it's just a little bit longer, like there. I like to make it pretty with a cable cap, but I guess I won't. I don't think I have anything. There's a cable cap on the top. That's where you see it. You can always add it later. You don't really need it. It's not important. But yeah, we'll got the cable housing on. So I gotta figure out what the inner cable is right there on the table. Grab that guy. Just throw that shit on the floor. I guess I'll just stop it again. Okay, so time is to put the cable into the thing. Which usually is not too difficult. I recommend lubing the cable at least a little bit. I use just, I guess I'm still using NFS oil, but I like making sure there's plenty of oil covering the cable. Even if it pours out a little bit, it's fine. Tri-Flow works for this. If you want to use Tri-Flow, that's perfectly fine too. There's also Finish Line and other company oils. I just prefer a Finn oil that's very light. The cable kind of stopped at the adjuster barrel, so you just gotta pull the cable housing out of it. I think that's really all I need. It doesn't need more than that. Just put some on the end where it's out in the weather. Start it. Get that over here again. So what we're gonna have to do is try to do this one-handed. So it's one of those inner cables that are, I think, galvanized or stainless steel or something. So we have this part. This is the cable stopper, holder, clamp, whatever you want to call it. It's an interesting design on part of Sturmey Archer where they kept it kind of the same way it's been for the last 100 years. So it's always a pain to get the cable through it. So I'll show it after it's routed through this thing and maybe connected to that guy. Okay, so this is the cable routed through. There's like a flat edge that faces up. Cable goes through and goes to the other side. You thread it to this guy, which requires 2 hands. Well, I could probably do it. Let's see, probably as a non-probable answer. Okay, I'm gonna do it with 2 hands. Okay, I got it threaded. So what I do is I kind of thread this to about there. This is almost to the end. I make it so, if it focuses, I make it so this nut is equal distance in threads to start off with, and then I'll tighten this binder bolt. Make sure this cable's fully pulled through, ends in the right place on the, what do you call that thing? Shifter. Make sure the cable is in its housing end. If it focuses. Make sure the cable's like aligned right, everything else, and then tighten this binder bolt. It's going to stretch, and you don't really have to readjust it after it stretches, because that's what the whole, this long bolt is adjustable, and even we got that to help adjust it even further. So I just get it as tight as I can. It is in 3rd gear on this one, I believe. That's in 3rd gear. That's what matters too. Because right now this should be in 3rd gear also, or high gear. So I'll tighten this binder bolt with contraptions we call wrenches. Okay, so that bolt is tightened. It should be pretty much like this anyway. But you know, we'll just tighten this up against there. There should be a little bit of slop. At this point, I'm probably going to cut this guy. So everything's up here perfectly fine. So we'll just shift it. Now it may not want to shift because you gotta kind of move the pedals around. So just let it click in place. You can do that adjusting gear 2 thing, but you know, I put it in high gear or the lowest gear possible. The thing that I hear is a clicking. So we should be in the low gear. So I don't know if you can see inside there because it is dark. It's just a bad angle. Right, but we have no slack, so we need to make that have slack. That's kind of what I want to do. We think it doesn't have slack. Yeah. So we'll actually loosen it. It's one of the fighting things where it doesn't loosen right. But you want to loosen this nut, or not this nut, this. But it has to loosen and move. Hold on a second. Okay, so I adjusted. This will spin around and aggravate you the whole time. But what we want to do is there's that chain, and it actually should move a little bit when it's in low gear. Now it should be in low gear. So we'll put this actually back on the wall for a second. So we got the cables on. I'm going to tie up the cables and I'm going to put it back on the wall. Okay, so it's up on the wall. This should be lowest gear. Okay, so the lowest gear shouldn't click. There should be no clicking. That's how we know it's adjusted right. Brake. Stick it in medium. Should be second gear. Make sure it clicks. And there should be a click, like a little tick. That tick is supposed to be there. That is the low gear pause ticking. Now this is a medium ratio hub, so it might not be ticking the same speed as an AW does. I think it's ticking a little bit slower, if anything. And we put it in the high gear. We tried to. I think that's not the high gear, I think it's low gear. Okay, it's the low gear. Let it pop into place. I'll try to get that next time. So right now it's in the highest gear. So this is high. So we'll tighten those together by hands later on, but there should be a little bit of floppiness to this. It's always going to flop. This is a noise that you'll hear as you're riding the bike. And ways to get this noise to go away is to, I don't know, maybe make sure this isn't touching. It's a little less noisy if it doesn't touch. But you can always put a piece of rubber or something right here, and that will keep it from noisiness. Anyway, earlier I showed an adjustment. Because inside that, there's a window to make it so you can see the chain. So we'll look at this again. So let's put this in medium. No nice and clunk sound, but you can't necessarily see that. But as you see, you can't even see the end of the damn hub axle. It's all the way there, and that is not even where it's a adjusting gear 2. It's not even the end of the chain. So we'll go to low gear, which should be all the way. And the thing on this is clanking and clunking. See under. But you can see that the chain rod is actually out well past the end. So what I'm going to try to do is hold this flashlight right at the camera. So what should happen is that when you pull on the cable, the rubber doesn't help anything, there should be a little bit of pull. Not a lot of pull, but just a little bit. Maybe this can be tighter. Just a little bit. So it doesn't pull as much. But it should pull a little bit. Just make sure this is all the way over. Maybe tighten it just a little more. Because this is what's important, is that the low gear can't just be popped out. But you want it to be tight enough to where that it should be tightening. Just pulls a little bit. That's usually good enough. I just put this cap back on. Make sure it's still pulling a little bit. It doesn't have to pull. It might actually be able to be still tighter. Right? So it barely pulls at all. Okay, so we have that. We'll tighten this in there. It's just a hand tightening thing. You can use thread lock on that if you wanted to. But low gear should make a clanking sound every time you start, or a clanking sound every time you stop. Now, if you want to know what's clanking, there's paws that are being pushed down by the clutch. So when you're going into it, you have that clanking, and you have that clanking when it comes out. It always does that. It's annoying at first, because every time you stop pedaling. But there's no clicking. That shouldn't be clicking at all. There should be no noise other than your chain. So I'll shift it in the second gear. It's going to go to pedal, doesn't matter. And second gear should be working perfectly fine and clicking. It still does the thing where it comes out. Now I'll show you something about this, how this is interesting. The AW should be doing that all 3 gears. It does push it a little bit. Even if the hub is very free, the sealed bearings in the front are so free that they push. So we'll go into the high gear, which is the other way. So it should be pretty taut, and you should hear it go into gear. That means it's the clutch going into the dogs, and it should be clicking a little bit faster. So right now this is at whatever I say it is on the AM build thread, the build video. That's where it should be. And it always feels like there's a little bit of drag on this one. But maybe this needs to keep working. I'll oil a little bit more and just get it going. Okay, so we're on the test ride. I rode about 10 miles, maybe 13 miles. Seems okay. It's holding tight. Well, it could be tighter. But yeah, some say to have a little bit of play on that thing anyway. The only thing that I noticed is, like, I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so this is in the low gear. So just like to point out, you have a little bit of an engagement slack. It's kind of hard to do. But the engagement slack is, if you're pedaling hard, it will, like, do that. That's the thing you notice in both low and direct, or first and second. In third gear or high gear, it just has the outside paws. So there's only like 20 points of engagement, or they say it's like 12, but it looks like it's 10 actually. On this side and that side, if I change it to the SRF3, it would make it 20 on each side. But I still remember feeling this, because you still got to engage the clutch, and the clutch engagement is what is causing all that. It's probably going to start pissing oil as soon as I let it sit like this, but anyway, that's a test ride on this bike. Let's get it moving. It's going to be a little bit harder. So I was just waiting for people to go by me. Slip in. So this is low gear. Right. So low gear is slightly easier than my range. It's outside. Shift it once. Direct, this is the outside gearing, which is 48-15. And high gearing out the side pedal, it's actually going to do that. Unless the clutch settle in places, you know, beat up the drivetrain. This is a little bit faster. It's kind of closer to the 48-14. That might be like 48. 13.5, something like that. Let's say it feels okay. It doesn't feel like it's dragging. Yeah. Anyway, I installed the AM on this bike, and thanks for watching.